What's up, guys? Welcome to the latest episode of Out of the Shadows. This one is entitled Shadow Work. Now, shadow work is a term in, I guess you'd call it the spiritual community, which is part of the personal growth community. And it refers to doing work in which you acknowledge parts of yourself that you don't really accept. And you don't accept these parts as you were taught as a child, either from parents, society in general, your culture, that they were unacceptable forms of behavior or feelings to have. And this term actually came from Carl Jung, the famous psychiatrist, one of the originals, shall we say. And he referred to the shadow self, again, just as, the part of your being that you're uncomfortable with, you think is wrong, you suppress certain emotions. And the entire point of doing what they call shadow work is to accept yourself fully, to be more authentic, to see that certain things that you may deem as unacceptable that's not necessarily the case. You form these opinions unconsciously, and it may have simply been there are certain societal rules, norms, whatever you want to call them, that aren't real. I had mentioned a very long time ago, a few months ago, in one of my posts on Instagram, I was outside of Starbucks. I had grabbed a coffee. This was when I was doing dog walking, and a woman had left her dog outside. She tied it to a post, went in real quick, perfectly acceptable. But the dog was clearly distressed. It was upset. It was whining. And I think a societal norm, or at least a feeling that's been instilled in us, is because everyone is so, leery / cautious, most people would not have approached the dog in fear that perhaps the owner would construe that action as negative or unwelcome or something of that nature. And I had this feeling, I was like, perhaps I shouldn't go over there. I don't know how this woman is going to feel / react. And I decided, I was like, well, you know what? This is one of those societal rules that it's bullshit. It's not real. Why? I'm not hurting anyone. I'm going to comfort the dog, and I'm not doing anything wrong. I'm not trying to steal it or something. So I'd gone over, I sat with the dog, I was petting it, I was like, it's going to be okay, your mom's coming back. And there was another man who was there, and he saw what I was doing, and I could tell he had wanted to do the same, and seeing me do it, he came over, started speaking to the dog, he and I had a conversation, and the woman came out and actually thanked us. And it was a very nice experience. Now, point being, in that long story, there are some rules of society, or rules that are embedded to us by our parents or whoever, that they aren't true. They're imaginary. Many rules in life that we follow aren't actual rules, and you need to be able to differentiate between which rules are real or worth following. So, in order to, I think, really grow and not hit a plateau, you have to do this shadow work. And I'm just going to use that term. There are other ways of thinking about this. Realistically, as I said, in psychology in general, I think they would probably refer to this as almost psychoanalysis, and the fact that you're going back to typically past events, past traumas, figuring out where certain emotions came from, where they originated, and disproving negative beliefs, essentially. So this is extremely necessary work. If you retain these negative beliefs that you formed unconsciously, typically in your youth, it's going to hold you back. I think anyone on some level has had the feeling, I can't do this, I'm not good enough, my opinion doesn't matter, I'm not worthy. I'm not worthy, let's say, is the core here. There's some variation of that. And where does that come from? Typically, it comes from some past experience, some, underlying trauma. And I don't mean it has to be a tremendous trauma, but something that you deemed to be traumatic in your youth. It could be something to where you came from a broken home and your parents' feelings came before your feelings. The indirect message was, you're not important, your feelings aren't important. So you took that on, subconsciously, likely at a very young age. An age far too young to process what was actually going on. In reality, if that's being done to a child, the parents are at fault. It's not true. The child is important. Their feelings are important. In some cases, and we've all met adults like this, perhaps even more relevant than the parents who are in the picture. Some people can be very illogical and very uncaring. So, in my opinion, only by being able to go back and find those things and realize, hey, you know what? This is where that belief started. And that's not true because I was too young to really process this, to understand this. And as I've said in my previous videos, and you can check out my videos on beliefs, you start to poke holes in the foundation of that belief. The negative belief, all of a sudden you doubt it. It's not an absolute. You can have the thought like, oh, I can't do that, or I'm not worthy of love. And all of a sudden that automatic thought, you kind of stop and you're like, oh, wait, is that true? Am I actually unworthy? Or is this just a bullshit concept and belief that I formed unconsciously at far too young an age? All of a sudden the doubt gets in there, and then eventually you no longer believe it because it doesn't make sense, doesn't make intuitive sense. And once you start to realize logically that it's not true, then you can start to accept on an emotional level that it's not true and really take it on. And it's like everyone out there says, if you can be in alignment with your beliefs and your actions, now you can have the belief that, well, I'm just as good as anyone else, no worse, no better. You're going to be far more effective at life. So the point being, I think it's very necessary. Many people focus on, being positive and thinking positively and focusing on things like the law of attraction and how can I manifest things. And I have my own views on that. I do think there's relevance to the law of attraction. I feel like the more positive you are, the more positive things happen. However, if you're caught up in the rudimentary understanding that, well, if I focus on good things and I envision good things and I make a vision board and I do X, Y, and Z, I will manifest all this and this abundance and this wonderful life. It's not so simple. There are variables at play. There's a car coming from the alley on my left. Anyway, Teal Swan, who I had done a review of one of her videos, and I really enjoy a lot of her stuff. She has a video called Fuck the Law of Attraction. I highly recommend that. Check it out. I will actually put the link below this video. And she discusses how, as I said, the law of attraction is not so simple. It's not exactly cut and dry all the time. If we want to get into this realm of spirituality, because let's be honest, that's what it really is. People always say, oh, well, the universe, and you're just using a different term for some kind of higher being, and that's okay. But I think it's spirituality, yet it's trying to not be spiritual because that's very frowned upon nowadays. I don't know. Anyway, point being, she has an explanation that I think makes sense. If we acknowledge that we have a spiritual side, or at least there's a side of life that we don't understand, and we acknowledge things like the law of attraction, perhaps we believe here, like, oh, I want that $1 million house. But perhaps on another level, on a more spiritual level, or our higher self, as many people would refer to it, maybe the want is, or the realization is, I want to understand the value of money, or the value of hard work, however you'd like to put it, whatever is at play. And sometimes the only way to understand that, and quite likely the only way to understand that, the only way to understand the value of things, the only way to understand the value of hard work is to have to work hard, is to have to work to acquire these things. If all of a sudden you snapped your fingers and you had $1 million house because you put it on a vision board, you didn't learn anything, you didn't find any particular value. So that's where the law of attraction is. Bleh. I would think the whole point, in my opinion, or one of the major points, would be growing in a spiritual sense, learning things, coming to acknowledge things. I mean, the only way you grow is to have certain experiences and to learn values. You're like I just said, you're not going to learn the value of anything or the relevancy of anything if something's just handed to you. So, as it's not as cut and dry. Forgive my rambling in this video. I feel like this is very unstructured and just going all over the place, but I'm trying to do the best I can here. So, point being, guys, focus on acknowledging the parts of yourself that perhaps you find undesirable, or delve into those feelings that are uncomfortable. A good example that actually Teal Swan had given was if, you know, you're out with your boyfriend, your girlfriend, whatever, someone else starts speaking to them, and you automatically get insecure and you get angry and you're snappy with them, and you don't even really realize why. But then you come to see it and you're like, well, why was I like that? It could be that you have a deep underlying insecurity that they're going to leave you because you're unworthy, you don't deserve their love. And to really explore that emotion and where it's come from, and to be able to deal with that, process it, and heal it, shall we say, that is going to get you further. That is going to get you to a point of more maturity, of more peace, where you can see someone talking to your significant other, and you're not going to worry that, oh my God, you know, maybe they're coming on to him. And even if they were, you'll be secure enough to be like, well, I have faith that my significant other is with me for a reason. They're not going to leave me, and if they are, based on this, then it wasn't the right person. So, alright guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. As always, like, share, subscribe, leave me some comments below, follow me on Instagram at OutOfTheShadowsCorvo, all one word, and until later, my friends, be well.